All right, so we're starting kind of halfway through the job here, but I've been working on the input jacks here. If you remember correctly, this second input was converted to that goofy master volume circuit. So we took that out. We need to replace the jack. This is the original jack. And then two resistors that were in there were very odd. There was a 3.3 meg and a 10K. So that might be something to do with the single input wiring I'm not aware of, but either way, we're replaced with the traditional Fender setup where you've got the 1 meg and the two 68Ks. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. Just like this. So you got the 1 meg, and then you've got the two 68Ks with the 168K going where they're joined together, and I've got the leads of the 1 meg and the 68K wrapped around to mechanically connect the two input jacks as well as obviously have the solder there. So, and a little pro tip for you, because I actually did this incorrectly and forced me to redo it. Make sure that this one, the 68K attached to the second input jack, is not going out on the outside of the input jack. So it's, you know, the resistor lead is coming out this way and the resistor's over here. Make sure it's coming on the inside, because if you have on the outside, it's too close to the bottom of the chassis and the brass plate there, and so it kind of just messes everything up. So make sure it's coming out on the inside where the quarter-inch cable comes out of on the single jack that doesn't have the 1 meg. So there's your little pro tip. Learned from my mistake there. Cost me a little bit of time, and but here we are. So we'll go ahead and remove these and install them, making sure the 1 meg stays on the one side because that's the high input. And we did already clean the brass plate, so no worries there. Beautiful. So we got those. Now we can go ahead and flip it around and solder the connections in. And we're good to go on this side. Okay, so we've got the input jacks wired in. Everything looks good to go there. And we can go ahead and move on. So turning our attention to the other input jack, we're gonna have to be doing the same thing because this one, for some reason, has two 1 megs. I don't know why that is. So it's got the 68Ks here, but it's also got two 1 megs in there, and there should only be one. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did to that and revert this to what the schematic says. So let's get to it. So we'll go ahead and inspect this here. So it looks like the original jacks to me, but yeah, you can see it's pretty toasted. The 1 megs, lots of globs of solder. Just kind of a bit of a bizarre wiring scheme here. So hopefully we'll be able to salvage these 68Ks, and then definitely we'll need a new 1 meg. So just to show that it only calls for a 1 meg on both sets of input jacks, we'll see we're on the 6G6A here, 1 meg, just a single 1 meg there. And if we go over to the 6G6 right here, we'll see that same deal, just a single 1 meg. So they're wired exactly the same, the two inputs. So we'll go ahead and make that swap over right now. Pretty dubious we're going to be able to salvage these 68Ks, but we'll do our best here. All right, there we go. There's the two input jacks connected together. Plenty of room with the 1 meg, and one thing that I really try to be careful about is making sure the 1 meg is not actually touching anything, the actual body of the resistor. But everything looks good to me, so set that aside, flip it around, and we'll clean off the brass plate before we do the install as well. This ground connection looks pretty poor, so I think we're going to hit it with the big soldering iron just to make sure it's really solid, which I won't be able to do once the jacks are installed. So we'll clean it off, hit it with the big soldering iron, and then continue forward. I forgot to hit record when I re-hit that solder joint, but I think what I'm going to do is also add a little bit of solder to the two edges here of the brass plate, just to make sure it's really solidly connected to the chassis itself. I'm just not totally convinced. It looks like there was one here before, but it's such a tight area to fit. I think it'd be better to just do it on the kind of the edges here where it's wide open, especially on this side before I have the input jacks in. So we're just going to go ahead and do that real quick. Well, to be honest, it didn't work quite as well as I'd hoped. I think I'm just going to do that one side, and we'll just leave it. I'm just going to put the solder on it one more time just to make sure it's super duper evenly melted across the two. I just assumed they would bridge better. but they are bridged, so it's not perfect, but it is perhaps better than nothing, or maybe as good as nothing. But we're going to move on. And for next time, the move might be to do, just like when I do the chassis grounds, you know, probably should have roughed up the chassis first. It went to the brass immediately, but the chassis proved a lot more difficult. But anyways, that's all fine and dandy. And then all this junk here, if you can even see it, this is just flux. So I guess we can get rid of that while we're here. Nice and tight. And then we just got to connect this lead right here to the 68Ks, just like we did over here. Snip the excess and we're good to go. So we've got our high and low inputs all done to Fender spec. And I think, taking a quick glance, I think we're just about good to go. Now there are some other things that are pretty poorly soldered on the pots, but they should still be functioning. All right, I can't really show you guys what I'm doing here. Just the angle for me to work and for you to see is just kind of not great. But yeah, this 820 is gonna have to be redone. You can see the lead was just basically nothing, and this one was all jacked, so no big deal. Alrighty, so we got that 820 installed, and everything else looks okay. Honestly, there's basically everything on this amp I could completely undo and redo, but we've invested so much time into this amp already, and I think it's time to really just start confirming everything's good to go and finally turn it on for the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a visual inspection of everything. I'm going to pull out the layout and review every little bit and confirm each part is exactly as it should be, because as you guys have seen, this is a bit of a transitional amplifier. There's a lot of little shavings of metal here and there too we want to take out. We'll use the compressed air on that to really clean it out. And then only then, we'll be able to fire it up. All right, so I've gone ahead and checked every single thing in this amplifier. There's kind of two things that are different that I noticed. One we've already talked about, which is this, where are we at? This one right here, this 0.047. According to the schematic, should be a 0.01. I don't have another a 0.1 blue molded. I don't have another blue molded in that value. So we're going to try the 0.047 and see how it does. This is part of the tone circuit here, so that will change the tone a bit, but we might actually prefer that change. And the other thing which I did not notice before is that this pot has actually been replaced, the volume control of the normal channel, and it's actually a 500K pot where it should be a 1 meg. So that's definitely going to have to be replaced, but unfortunately I don't have a 1 meg. So yeah, we'll have to go ahead and order one, but we should still be able to turn it on and confirm that everything else is working. But yeah, that is a bit of an annoying bummer. So I wish I would have caught that before. But anyways, everything looks pretty good to me. There are some other things like these ground connections are very poor to the chassis. We can fix those later, but that's not a big deal right now. And just clean it out in other ways. But I think we're ready to finally fire this sucker up. All right, folks. Here's kind of the moment of truth. We've got the amplifier connected to the current limiter off camera here, as well as a variac also off camera here. And yep, we're gonna just go ahead and fire it up. No tubes in it, of course. We're just gonna see if there's an immediate dead short, and then just kind of slowly work our way up from there. We did a ton of work to this thing. I mean, basically replaced, I don't know, 60% of the amp at least. Power transformer, all the wiring here, everything here was redone. So there's a lot of potential chances for failure. And also, I never, got to play it beforehand to confirm it worked in the first place. I can't remember if the owner ever turned it on or not beforehand either. But the thing was completely different, right? It was wired in a weird way, bunch of weird stuff, master volume, transitional model between 6G6, 6G6A, different power transformer that wasn't the right spec, etc., etc. So we've got a lot to decipher and figure out here. So we're going to go ahead and slowly bring up the variac and hope for the best here. We're going to flip it on. Let's grab our multimeter too while we're here, and we'll confirm we're getting some voltages. So the first thing we'll confirm is AC voltage, making sure we're getting power from the wall. So we got it connected to the fuse tape here just to show we're getting, got the variax at 8 volts. We're getting 8.6 volts there. So then we should be getting the same here, which we are, which means the same here, which we are, which means the same here, which we are. So all of that looks good so far. And now we'll go ahead and switch over to DC volts. And we want to see what kind of voltage we're getting over here. Should be negative, which it is, thankfully. And obviously we've not played with the value here yet for the bias resistor. We do have that trim pot in there, which was the original value. So we'll just see, what it gives us as we slowly bring it up, watching the current limiter. Now we're getting up to about negative 55, which is roughly what the schematic called for. So that looks pretty good to me as a starting point. And now I think we can go ahead, we'll turn it off, and let's go ahead and get some tubes in it. So we'll start with just a rectifier and then slowly work our way up. Check over here, 513 volts at the output transformer. That's pretty gnarly. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start adding in more tubes, turn it off. All right, we can see, and this just goes to show how dangerous this can be with the amplifiers. It's turned off right now, 0 volts from the wall, and we're still 323 volts right there. So quite a lot of voltage. We can put this over here to see what the negative bias voltage is. And again, watching the current limiter, we're going to slowly bring up the voltage from the wall, and we'll get our bias calculator out so we can check the bias on this sucker. Power tubes are both lit. This is not on, but I've had this happen before a number of times. I think it's from bringing up the voltage slowly, maybe. So I'm just going to go, we can see the current limiter is showing a little voltage here, or a little current, I should say, but it's very lightly lit, so that's no worries. So as far as preamp tubes are concerned, 2 of the tubes are questionable. They should be all 12AX7s, and this one is a 12AT7. And then the other one has no markings left on it, so I can't make out what it is. So we're just going to put in 2 new JJs here in these positions 3 and 4. All right, that's 120 volts from the wall, and current limiter has a very faint glow, just like you would hope to see. So that looks good to me. Now I think what we'll do is we'll grab the my phone's signal generator and just see if we're getting any output at all. It's got a 432 hertz signal here. Turn it all the way up, and we'll see if we're getting anything out of the speaker. And we are. All right, that's good news. So now we'll go ahead and check the other channel here. But hey, we got output, guys. That's a huge win. I'm underselling that. That's a huge win. All right, we got no output on this channel. Spoke too soon, perhaps? Okay, we do have output, but this is doing nothing. So the volume control here, so there's volume, you can hear it coming out right now, but there's no volume. This is not doing anything. So this is the 500K pot that should be a 1 meg. So that's jacked up. All right, so okay. Some good and some bad, huh? Go ahead and flip that sucker off. It's kind of funny. Leave the signal generator running while you turn the amp off. It's just like playing in it. And instead of having 400 volts there, we're down to 3 volts. Okay, well, good news. It's working. Bad news. Something going on with this area here. It could be how it's wired, I guess. This lead right here. It's going under the board, and so I don't 100% know if that's connected correctly or not, so we'll have to figure that out, but it's most likely just the pot itself. 500K is not what should be in there. So yeah, and I unfortunately, again, do not have a 1 meg. I'm pretty sure. Let me just confirm. Yeah, 500K, 500K. Yep, all I got are 500Ks. So that's not going to help us here. So we'll have to go ahead and order that, but the bass channel works. So let's grab a guitar real quick. All right, so I flipped it back on, and as you can see, this is now showing plate current. I've had a heck of a time with my bias probe here from Eurotubes. It just seems to glitch. Sometimes it works and shows the number, sometimes it just doesn't. So this is good though. We can check the bias. We are unplugged from the current limiter, and 120 from the wall. So let's see what that puts us at. 470 volts. And then plate current is 20, let's say 29. So we're at 45%, so that's really good. Now let's warm it up a little bit. So that new number gives us 466. So that gives us 54%. So if we want 60%, it looks like we'll be right at halfway. So we'll just confirm that. That worked out perfectly. So 37 for plate current, 464. Let's see, does that give us 60%? 57%, right at halfway. You can see that, probably not. 57.2%. So that's brilliant. We can go a little bit more if we want to, but we're kind of right on the money. Very happy with that. I've got my Jazz Master in my hand, so let's go ahead and hear how it sounds real quick. Does not affect it. Bass pot seems to be doing basically nothing, which is weird. All right, so first impressions, it's quite bright actually, and very little low end, which we're in the bass channel. So that's weird to me. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure. It could be that bass pot is just done, and it could just be bad. That could be a thing. Or, see, it's running to... The tone stack is going through these blue moldy caps right here. Those could be bad. That could be a thing. I'm not sure. Yeah, super interesting. And the other piece, too, is obviously we mentioned that this... this cap right here should be a 0.1. It is a 0.047. So 0.1 will let in more low end, but I wouldn't anticipate it being that big of a difference. Very interesting. I would have expected it to be louder too. Okay, so here's another thing. There's a oscillation happening when I have the treble control right from here to there. There's like a very light pop and a crazy oscillation. Well, I think it's an oscillation. It's a super high-pitched noise. Weird. Okay, something's going on. Well, unfortunately, this amplifier is going to be a lot more work, it seems like. I'm not sure. So we're going to have to do some more digging, but I've got to head out of town today, so we're done for today. But hey, it works. There's noise, there's audio, but really it seems like we're just getting started, unfortunately. So, all right, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, follow along by subscribing, and until next time, see ya. All right, it's a new day, and I was thinking more about this kind of issue we're having with the volume pot and the bass pot. And I thought, I wonder if it's just not tight at all. So I started loosening the nut here, which I did off camera. Again, this was a replacement pot by the, I think it's safe to say the previous tech was a hack after all that work that you guys saw. I don't feel too bad about that. But yeah, it completely moved, and it looks like, let's see here, but it seems to me, yep, look at that, no tooth washer. So that'll do it. I mean, I don't 100% know that's the case of it not working, but I mean, certainly doesn't help, right? So just wild, man. I don't understand people at all. Again, this is a 500K pot. I don't know how the heck I missed this. You can see that 500K. When I was, looking at the amp, no idea how I missed that. So that's 100% my bad when I was reviewing things. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and just pop this on and see if we can tighten her up and if that'll work or not. Fingers crossed. We're still replacing it. I've already got a, replacement on order. But at least, that'll kind of confirm it's not something else. And maybe we can continue working on the amplifier on the normal channel here and check things, because it's a little hard to check things when you got the amp blaring and the volume control not working. And I also do not have a I can barely get this. I also do not have a 4-ohm cab that's really rated for what this amp puts out. I've got my Vibrolux cab, which is what I'm using, so I don't really want to be pumping a ton of audio through it. Yeah, look at this piece of crap pot here. The threads are just trashed. That's why I can't get this nut on. All right, we're just gonna kind of have it floating here. Connect it to ground via, see if I can do it with an alligator clip maybe. Yeah. Let's see if we can get that to work. All right, we're still getting a little tone, but it is maxed out on my phone and barely on, so it's 100% of ground. Yep, so volume pot works now, so the ground is just non-existent on that. Very, very annoying. And then we've got the bass pot, which could be a similar thing, though I think it's an original pot. It looks original, but we'll go ahead, we'll turn the amp off, and we'll do the same sort of thing and just see if we can tighten it up. Maybe it's loose. So let's try that real quick. No, it's pretty tight. So we're getting our 860 ohm, that's totally fine. So that's not the issue. And then you've only got one other lead to it, which is this lead right here. And that goes right here to this junction, which has the 0.25, one of the blue molded 0.25s, and then the 27K resistor there. So my guess is it's got to be the 0.25. So the other 0.25 is connected to the other pot, or the other lug. Sorry, that's to the wiper. That's to this far lug here, the bass pot. So it's very likely that it's those two that's the problem. And then the treble control, this was a note earlier, this should be a 0.1, but the amp came with a 0.047 in that spot. That's going to the treble pot here, And then it's got a 0.02 cap on it. The treble seemed to do plenty, although we were getting a weird oscillation thing going in that channel, so I'm not really sure. And this bass pot should be a 25K log. So yep, you can see 24K there. I'm not connected to the ground side of the 820 ohm resistor, so it's not in play here. So you can see it is correct. It's going from 24K down to, it doesn't go to 0, but it's going to 24 ohms. I mean, not too bad. And I'll show with the resistor in the signal chain. So now the minimum will be 820 ohm, and then the maximum should be, yeah, basically 25K. 24K plus the 820 roughly. So yeah, and it seems, I don't really see any, so that's the maximum. The minimum, let's see, is there. So roughly, I guess we can kind of see there's like a dead spot in it maybe. All right, so my inexperienced troubleshooting here, I'm gonna think that we got most likely something to do with these two blue moldeds here because they're connected directly to the bass pot there. And the pot is reading fine, the resistor is reading fine, and those are the only two connections off of that bass pot. So we'll have to order something to try, but we're making progress, right? That's okay. We confirmed this is an issue, and we've already got the part ordered, so in the right direction.